Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's discussion. My name is Stephanie Schalow. I am the Director of Marketing at Bigtincan. Today we're going to be talking about two really interesting topics in the sales and marketing world, Sales Enablement and ABM, and how when you actually converge the two, you can have a really effective sales and marketing machine, if you will. But before we talk about that, let's first define what definition of sales enablement are we using. Anyone who's been in the industry a little bit or doing research around sales enablement knows that it can encompass a ton of different core competencies. So for simplicity's sake, I'm going to be using a series decisions model that incorporates managing sales talent, sales assets, and sales communication. Hopping over to account-based marketing, I think it's actually worth taking a step back and looking at the traditional MQL-based model. So typically, marketing will do a field event, they'll do something online, a webinar, whatever it may be, create a bunch of MQLs or marketing qualified leads, and then sort of pass them over the wall to sales, and then poof, they kind of lose visibility from there into the interactions with those prospects. It's very much that linear relationship where marketing does their thing first, creates those leads, and then sales takes it from there. And that can lead to sort of a disjointed experience for your prospects. The prospects that are getting sent to sales sometimes really aren't ready to be sent to sales. They haven't been properly warmed up. They maybe had one engagement, but they don't really know who you are. And that's really where ABM started to take off. It was focused around personalizing your efforts so that leads are actually ready to talk to sales when they get to sales. Account-based marketing is an alternative B2B strategy that focuses both sales and marketing resources on a clearly defined set of target accounts within a market and employs personalized campaigns designed to resonate with each account. And this can take a bunch of different forms. There are a bunch of great technologies out there that can help you with ABM. That can display personalized ads to certain personas at certain companies anywhere that they're browsing online. There are softwares that can display a completely different website experience on your website to someone depending on if they're a key account and what persona they fit into. So there's a lot of ways that you can personalize these campaigns and do ABM. Typically, ABM is going to help you achieve deeper account penetration. The whole goal is kind of warming up an entire account as opposed to just one lead. Because, as you know, if you're in the B2B space, there's typically a lot more than one person involved in a buying decision. It may be 20 key stakeholders, depending on how large your deals are. Quicker pipeline velocity, and again, that comes from warming up those leads ahead of time. If they have sort of all the info that they need going into a discussion with sales, that sales cycle is most likely going to be shorter. And we all know that B2B buyers are doing a ton of research online, something around 70% of their research before they even reach out to sales. Larger deal sizes is also something that ABM can actually help with. And again, this comes from sort of large-scale executive buy-in that you can get by warming up accounts. If you can get the CFO on board with something and the COO and the CRO, they actually might expand whatever software they're buying for one department into another department, therefore increasing your deal size. More engaged prospects is kind of a given, but prospects appreciate when they know that you've taken the time to actually focus in on the problems that they're really interested in. ABM can also get you increased quality and quantity of data, which is really great information to have when you're optimizing your campaigns and figuring out really how to message to different personas within different companies. And finally, increased revenue. Who doesn't want that, right? So those all probably sound pretty familiar because that's definitely stuff that sales enablement practitioners care about. And even if you don't have someone that specifically heads up sales enablement, it's very likely that sales and marketing as a kind of overall team is looking to create those same kind of metrics. So I'm here to argue that sales enablement is really the link to taking ABM and removing it from its maybe traditional kind of marketing silo and connecting sales and marketing in a way that you really couldn't do before. And I'll be talking about a couple ways that you can execute that within your own organization. And I think we all know lack of alignment really can cost your organization. There's this really kind of scary stat from HubSpot that I always like to reference. Sales and marketing misalignment costs businesses $1 trillion each year in decreased sales productivity and wasted marketing efforts. That's not a small number. And there's also a great one from Serious Decisions talking about the opportunity cost of unused or underutilized marketing content costing roughly $2.3 million for enterprise organizations. And sometimes that can come from marketing creating stuff and sales not knowing when to use it. When is it actually going to resonate with them? How do I get to it? There's probably a ton of questions that sales has in terms of how to utilize the content that marketing has created, or have they even created it? They don't even know. So in order to have a successful ABM initiative, that alignment really needs to be there. We all know no prospects like receiving double info or mismatched messaging from sales versus marketing. So how do you really execute on sales enablement driven ABM, let's call it? And it comes down to focusing on that actual definition of sales enablement in the first place. It's managing talent, assets, and communication. So starting out on the talent piece, it is so crucial that the marketing and sales handoff process is addressed in the onboarding process. And that ABM is incorporated into sales key competencies. ABM may sound like something, because it has the word marketing in it, that is just marketing's thing and sales doesn't have to worry about it, and that really is not the case. And if that's the way that you're viewing ABM, you're likely going to have issues really executing and really having effective campaigns. So it's so crucial, if you are a sales enablement practitioner, to address, if you're doing ABM, exactly how you guys are doing it. What kind of campaigns are you running? What is the process for marketing and sales engaging sometimes at the same time? And just ensure that ABM is part of their ongoing learning. And then, jumping to the content piece, and then hopping over to the content piece of it, first of all, it's so important to align on your key criteria. First of all, who are your target accounts? What's that list look like? Why are they a target? And that can be any variety of criteria within an organization, and everyone has their own kind of unique mix. From there, what is the buying process, or at least what do we know about that buying process within the organization? Is it something that maybe is always driven by RFPs, or do we know that it goes through procurement and takes 2 years to go through? What do you know about that? And that's typically stuff that sales knows that maybe marketing doesn't. And then also, what are your key personas within that account? You probably have some key personas that you always are kind of selling in marketing to, but there may be some other ones involved depending on that specific account. From there, once you've kind of aligned on those pieces in terms of content, you have to sort of look into the content governance, content audit, and content delivery space and think about, where is your content currently stored? And this is content that sales is going to be sending to these prospects to some extent in tandem with this ABM initiative. So how is that content delivered to the reps? How do they know what's what? How is it organized? And when do they know when to use certain pieces of content? And that process really has to be consistent, reliable, and measurable. And I'll be talking in a little bit about how sales enablement platforms can really help you create that reliable, consistent process that aligns everyone together. And then in terms of the core asset development, if you're not in marketing and you're listening to this, you might be thinking, that seems like marketing's job, right? And for the most part, yes, you're correct. I don't think that most of you would want a salesperson creating an infographic unless you have very talented salespeople. But overall, yes, marketing is the ones that are really pulling everything together. But in something like ABM, these campaigns are so hyper-personalized on one single account that a lot of times that sales rep who's been trying to work that account has a lot more insight into that organization than marketing might, because maybe they've talked with them before, or maybe they've done research from friends or other technologies and figured out exactly what that organization cares about, or we've kind of been mapping their engagement with us up until this point. And in terms of that asset development, it needs to be a consistent process with all the key stakeholders involved. marketing is great, but there's only so much information that we know. And that feedback from the field is so crucial to making sure that these campaigns can really be effective. And that feedback obviously should be a two-way flow of communication, but there's something to be said about consolidating communications into one point of truth, so that you're not digging around in Slack and email and phone messages and instant messaging, trying to find what feedback that salesperson had about a certain piece of content, or maybe how you should position your product to this company because you know that this is what they care about. Consolidating communications is one point of truth, so that's not only internally, but also consolidating that into one point of truth so that you can kind of audit external communication. So who's sending what piece of content, where and why, and are the processes being followed? So can you look into your current process and say, okay, marketing did X, Y, and Z things, and now sales has these 6 assets. They were sent out at a specific cadence to specific people. Did they open it? Did they interact with it? Is it all being logged in CRM? There's a lot of information that you need to be able to kind of track to make sure that when you're looking at your campaigns, if you say, okay, that one wasn't that effective, at least make sure that process is being followed. If it is, then you have some, a little bit of work to do on optimizing it. But it may just be that the process wasn't followed correctly. Maybe certain pieces of content that were key in the communication didn't get sent out, or got sent by marketing and sales. Or maybe the messages were misaligned. It's important to have that two-way flow of communication and really a good way to audit what's being sent. In terms of how sales enablement platforms can really help you, it's also just worth noting that they can automate a lot of those things so that you're not having to, you as in a salesperson, a marketing person, are not having to log all of these actions. Automation really isn't replacing the human in sales or marketing. It's just allowing the humans to do their part better through less human error, better quality and quantity of data, and the ability to really scale out your efforts. ABM is a very resource-intensive, in terms of time and money, kind of initiative. So that ability to scale is key. And sales enablement platforms really have become a significant part of organizations' roadmaps and tech stacks. So what are some ways that you can actually use it to help in ABM? The first would be that marketing can actually, if you're using a platform like something like Bigtincan, can actually associate content to campaigns within your CRM. So you can have that visibility into, did they interact with the sales content that was sent to them? So marketing will create a specific PDF that is, for XYZ company and XYZ personas in there. Sales sends it out, and then that person interacting with that content will actually drop them into the campaign, and then you'll also get the activity logged onto that lead's record. And then Bigtincan can also actually look into your CRM and determine if the person that was sent that piece of content is already a lead in Salesforce or not. If they are a lead, maybe they should be a contact. It'll actually convert that over to a contact so that your interactions or sales interactions through content with that prospect will actually start to give you an account level view as opposed to an individual lead. From there, you can start to determine some key metrics along the lines of, sometimes you think of it in terms of how long did marketing engage and how long did sales, but you can start to actually look at that full picture and say, okay, marketing have been running personalized campaigns with them for 6 months before they were even ready to respond to a piece of sales content. And overall, sort of automating those processes really just gives you increased visibility. And that increased visibility definitely helps marketers personalize those campaigns and optimize what you're doing within your ABM initiatives. If you can say, okay, this kind of display ad works best when it's paired with, the salesperson sending this specific piece of content at this specific time, you can sort of start to scale out and replicate success across other campaigns. You also could actually get more marketing budget at the end. If you can establish ROI on what you're doing, it's likely that you can actually get some more money to continue to run these. When it comes down to it, it's all about increased visibility and the increased visibility that things like sales enablement platforms can actually provide. So if you've been thinking about ABM and thinking about how can sales enablement help, you first want to establish just a benchmark of, do you have your existing metrics on things like pipeline velocity, close rates, number of touches before an opportunity closes, etc. Just so that if you implement something like a sales enablement technology to help you really align on those pieces, that you can go back and say, okay, this metric has increased XYZ%. Also, take a look at what aspects of sales enablement are you using to ensure that your ABM is really kind of alignment focused. So, again, are you addressing things in onboarding? Is there that two-way flow of communication? Is whatever technology that you're using to enable salespeople with content functional and easy to use? How are you managing those assets? And what technology do you have to get content to reps, inform them of marketing campaigns, and automate their actions? And if you don't have one, again, there are a lot of great technologies out there. Bigtincan is definitely one to take a look at. And finally, just how do you close the loop? How are you currently closing it? And if you can't, maybe it's time to make a change. So hopefully this has at least kind of got your creative juices flowing in terms of how you can use sales enablement technology to kind of optimize what you're doing within ABM and really align sales and marketing to be a well-oiled machine and eventually close more deals. Thanks, everyone.